Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with reTHINK Coaching.
Hello and welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 3. Today I'm going to talk to you about the compound effect. And I know a lot of us have heard of the compound effect when it comes to money. If you save money starting at a young age, monthly, it adds up, and at a later time in life, you'll have accumulated a nice amount of money. And while that is fantastic, that is not the compound effect that we're talking about today. Today, I want to talk to you about the compound effect that your decisions, your small decisions, can have on your success or your potential failures over time, while allowing it to compound effect. So that's really what we're going to talk about today. So the compound effect is really a powerful resource and tool when you allow yourself to really think about it. We've talked about this before. A lot of things that happen and drive the decisions and the actions that we make come from an unconscious place. Like, we just do things on an unconscious level. And so this is really a great opportunity for you today to pay attention and for us to think about the things that we're doing that, when added up over time, are maybe not serving us. So let me give you an example of a decision I made in my life that has had a tremendous impact on me, and it happened because of the compound effect. So a little while ago, I made a decision. I didn't really like the way I was feeling health-wise, and I didn't like the way I was looking, to be quite honest. And I made a decision that I was going to take control over my health. So I decided to walk 3 to 4 miles a day. On average, it's about 3.5 because there's a couple different paths I go. But I made a decision that I was going to take a walk every day. And that decision was the thing that has had a tremendous impact on my health and the way I look. But it didn't happen instantly. So the first day I went for a walk, I didn't get on the scale that day and go, oh my gosh, I lost weight. Oh my gosh, my clothes are fitting differently. I look different. It didn't have an impact in a week. If I can be honest with you, it took a little while to see the impact. It took a moment to get to the tipping point of that decision and that activity to really see the results. However, walking 4 miles a day over the course of a year adds up to over, I think it's 1,100 miles, like 1,095 miles. That makes a difference on my overall health and how I look. And how I look is important to me. So that is an example of the compound effect. Now, think about this in your business. Think about this in your business. Every little decision that ends up in a win drives you to a big win. Every little decision that you make that results in a loss, the little loss adds up to a big loss. That's just how it works. And a lot of times the things that we're doing on an unconscious level because it's just what we've always done. So the compound effect is really fascinating. And it's one element that I'm really going to invite you to think about and look at it through the lens of business in your life and think about those activities. So compound effect. Another thing to think about, right? Compound effect can be positive or negative, right? I talked about a positive result. I go for a walk every day. The positive result is the compound effect is that I've lost weight and I feel like I look better. That's a positive compound effect. Now, let me tell you about a negative one that probably got me to the point that I needed to walk 4 miles a day. If I daily ate a cookie, or in my case, a handful of hot tamales, if I daily would eat a cookie or 2 cookies or 3 cookies every time I passed the cookie jar, that day I got on the scale eating 3 cookies, not a big deal. That week, or the next day, probably not a big deal. Yet over time, if I ate 3 cookies a day, compounded daily, weekly, quarterly, annually, the compound effect of eating 3 cookies a day is going to have an impact on me. And I'm not saying it's different for different folks. For me, that would not be a positive compound effect. So, compound effect can be positive or negative, and it's really important that you pay attention to both because they both are going to have an impact on your results. They're both going to have an impact on whether they're moving you towards your goal or away from your goal. If they're moving you towards your best life ever or moving you away from your best life ever. So, I just want to talk to you about a couple things that are fairly common for people that are not paying attention to the compound effect that may not be serving them. And so I am not judging. I am not putting or projecting how I feel about social media on anybody else. However, I will tell you it's one area in our lives that the compound effect of social media can be tremendously negative in terms of taking away a lot of time. So think about this. This is a great example of compound effect. On average, so that could be more or less, we spend about 2.5 hours a day on social media. So if you think about it, at the end of the day today, if I spent 2.5 hours on social media, is it that big of a deal? Probably not. I mean, not the best use of my time, but not a big deal, right? So if I continue to go through my life thinking, it's just a couple hours today, no big deal. 2.5 hours a day over the course of a year, over 365 days, that adds up to 913 hours spent on social media. 913 hours. Now, here's what's really fascinating. 913 hours is a lot of time. On average, if you gave yourself back 913 hours over a 40-hour work week, you'd be giving yourself back 23 weeks. Think about that one little decision to go down a rabbit hole on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and go watching videos and checking in and just kind of getting lost in it. It's very natural, not good or bad. It's just maybe not the best use of your time. And so I just want you to think about that little decision to spend 2.5 hours a day in the moment and on an unconscious level doesn't seem like a big deal. But over a year, that's an average 23-hour week on average 40 hours a week. That's 913 hours of your life spent on social media. I just think there could be a better way to spend some of that time. Now, social media, it is something that we all do. It's necessary. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just want you to get the example that can take up a bunch of time. So think about this, the compound effect. I think it was Earl Nightingale in one of publications said, gradually and suddenly. How did you go bankrupt? Gradually and suddenly. I want you to think about that gradually and suddenly when you think about the compound effect, right? Gradually, I walked 4 miles a day. Suddenly, my pants are loose. Gradually, I ate 3 cookies a day. Suddenly, my pants don't fit. That's the compound effect. It's gradually and suddenly. So what I want you to pay attention to when you think about the compound effect is the gradual piece of it. The little thing that we think doesn't make a difference when multiplied by 365 days of the year makes a difference. It just does. So we've talked about social media. We've talked about good things. We've talked about powerful things. And we've talked about paying attention to the gradual because the gradual leads you to suddenly, the compound effect. Now, I want to be fair. I think part of the reason we've fallen out of touch with the compound effect when it comes to business and life is because of the society and the world that we live in. We live in a world of instant gratification. I need something, I get an Amazon Prime, click, I've checked out, it's at my doorstep the next day. If you live in a major city, sometimes it's at your door within 2 hours. We live in a place of instant gratification. That's also in a way that we communicate with each other. We have evolved to a place that we're texting and we're direct messaging on social media. We're trying different resources to get an immediate response from somebody because we live in a place of instant gratification. We've conditioned our brains to react and behave in that manner. Now, think about that when it comes to business or your life. Why would it be different, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything. If I'm living my life in an instant gratification space, it's going to show up in my business and life. It just is. So I think that's where we've lost touch with the compound effect. If we do not get a win that day, I did this activity, I called X amount of people, I did this activity in my business or in my life today. I did it for 2 hours and I didn't get a result. And I'm just frustrated and I'm not going to do it again. But if you did that same activity 2 hours a day, an hour a day, whatever it is, every day over the course of a year, I promise you, you're going to get to a tipping point where you're going to see results. You can't help but do it gradually and then suddenly. Gradually and suddenly. Gradually, I did my sales lead generation. Suddenly, I had an abundant pipeline of business. Gradually, I stopped doing my lead generation. Suddenly, I had no business. That's the compound effect. So get out of the space of instant gratification and embrace the long journey. I know it takes a moment to wrap our brain around it because we run, and we want an instant win when the reality is the little wins add up to the big wins. The little win, and that little win might be doing the activity that day for an hour a day. That might be the little win. Will add up to a big win. I promise you, it will add up to a big win in the future. So I'm going to ask you to do this. I'm going to ask you to really spend some time today and just sit with analyzing what you do on the regular in your life and your business. Okay. And here's what I know. Like you asked me what I had for breakfast today. I may not remember. So I'm not going to ask you to go back over the last month and figure this out. Just take a look over the last 72 hours. Think about what you do on the regular in your life and your business every day and analyze it. Is it positive? Is it negative? Right? Social media might be on both sides of it, right? A positive experience with social media is 30 minutes a day. A negative experience is 2.5 hours a day. Sit with the activities that you're doing, and a lot of it you're doing on an unconscious level. And I'll tell you how I knew this about social media for me. I was probably one of those people that was on the high end of 2.5 hours a day. And do you want to know how I knew and how I had to catch myself doing this on an unconscious level? I removed social media apps from all of my mobile devices, my iPad and my iPhone, and I only have it on my laptop. I cannot tell you the number of times a day when I first removed the app that I grabbed my phone or my iPad to go check out Facebook, what's going on. I realized at that point that activity was happening on an unconscious level. And I was that person 23 weeks of 40 hours a week. I was giving to an activity that was not really moving me towards my goal. So I really want you to sit with what are you doing that's serving you and what are you doing that's not serving you. And again, remember the gradual. Sit with it and think about if I multiplied this by 365 days this year and I did it daily, what's the impact? What will the compound effect deliver to me at the end of the year? And I think you're going to be shocked. And then you get to make a choice. Do I want to remove that activity? In my case, I didn't remove social media completely from my life. I couldn't. And I don't necessarily want to because it's a great way to keep in touch with people and to be part of your world. However, I control how much time I spend on it. And the compound effect of that's been huge. I got time back in my day. I invested in other things and I still accomplish what do I need to accomplish in social media. So spend some time just analyzing what you do. And this is where we have to be really aware of what are we doing unconsciously, just like I was doing, grabbing my phone, grabbing my iPad. It was happening. Pay attention, look at it over the course of the year. Ask yourself, is this serving me? Is it not serving me? And if it's not serving you, do something with it. Replace it with an activity that is serving you. I'll tell you, when I did with some of that time I was getting back from social media, I started spending some thinking time in my business every day. First, it started off as a half hour. Now I spend an hour a day of thinking time in my business. Do you think that that compound effect over the course of years made a difference, that I've committed to some strategy, some strategic thinking time? That's made a huge difference in my business. I gradually and suddenly been journaling. Suddenly, my journaling is incredibly powerful. Didn't used to be, but I got to the tipping point. I got to that point where I crossed over, and that activity is bringing me huge wins in my business and my life. So, my friends, just going to ask you to spend some time with this. The compound effect is really, really important to think about. It's great to have instant gratification. My goodness, we all love an instant win. But how you insulate to have more wins in life and business is to lean into the compound effect. I appreciate you all so much. Thanks for being here. Really take some time to think about this. Really take some time to honor yourself and invest in figuring out what compound effect, what gradually and suddenly is working for you and working against you. I appreciate you being here. Please feel free to make a comment, like this, share this podcast with people that you think could benefit from hearing us today talk about the compound effect and all of the other episodes that we have recorded just for you. I look forward to hearing from you. Go make it a great day, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.